With a staggering 78% of the votes, Professor Chukwuma Charles Soludo has clinched a second-term victory as governor of Anambra State, sweeping 20 out of 21 local government areas. The incumbent governor, who contested on the platform of the All Progressives Grand Alliance, polled 422,664 votes to emerge the winner of the elections, with his closest rival, Prince Nicholas Ukachukwu of the All Progressive Congress, APC, scoring 99,445 votes to come second.
Paul Chukwuma, the candidate of the Young Progressives Party, YPP, secured 37,753 votes, while the Labour Party candidate, Moghalu, scored 10,576 votes. John Nwosu, the candidate of the coalition-backed by the African Democratic Congress, ADC, polled 8,208, and we will be doing a post-assessment of the exercise as we seek to find out if he truly won the election, or if he truly is the choice of the people in the way that we saw things being carried out, and if the elections met the expectations of the people in the state. Well, joining us for this discussion today is News Central's Head of Research and Digital News Editor, Abdulateef Ahmed. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
All right, so we're having a virtual guest join us in a moment, but let's start with you, Abdulateef. Yeah. Your assessment of Anambra's elections, and if you think that if this were to be a litmus for the analysis or the assessment of Joash Amupiton, how would you say he has fared?
Did Professor Joash Amupiton pass his litmus test?
Absolutely. I looked at a lot of things before, ahead of the election. About 11 days before the election, I projected 21% voter participation. And that what we saw was about that. That is one. Two, the messaging from all the political parties, you know, there was no bile in the messaging. They just campaigned on what they wanted to do. And so it was an impressive thing to look at from the angle of the participant itself. And then the electorate. We didn't hear of voter snatching, ballot snatching. We didn't hear of violence. We didn't hear of shootings and all that. However, there were issues around voter buying,
cash and carry,
which you cannot take out of elections because
I mean, it's an anomaly. We don't see these things in other democracies,
yes,
even in Africa.
It is the desperation of politicians that causes things like this. They tend to want to get it by all means, because they've not done their assignments well. On the other hand, you see how almost every voter, is saying positive things about the governor and their willingness to vote for the governor. So it was a good thing to see that he clinched, landslide, a clean sweep, without arguments, unlike the previous elections of 2021, where we had...
So you don't think any one of his opponents are going to court?
They could go to court, but there's no point because it is a clear victory. It is, it's apparent from across board that he won decisively. You
mentioned something very disturbing, 21%.
Right.
I mean, when they're doing the voter registration exercise, we get excited about, big numbers that INEC declares.
2,2,788,000
and we say,
State.
Nigerians are now becoming politically savvy and aware.
Yeah.
And then on election day, the situation is different. I mean, how can 21% of eligible voters return you as governor? Not even half. That's an indictment, and this is not...
So we had a situation where we were having about 50 to 60% voter turnout since 1999, but the issues were that most times we had mass thumb printing, you had fictitious voting patterns. With time, there was a decline. When APGA took over, there was a decline in the number of voters. In fact, we used to have about, before Soludo came in, it was 16% voter turnout. When he came in with just 10% of the total number of registered voters. So this is like an improvement, because at that time there was a lot of, issues around insecurity from the IPOB messaging, disinformation. Even this time around, we didn't see a lot of disinformation from IPOB as we used to see online. The only thing that I did see was an issue around a message on Facebook saying that elections had held on Thursday. and there was a video to that, but it wasn't really an election, just some form of registration. So in essence, we will say that there's an improvement from what we had in the previous election. What I was slightly worried about is the deployment of security. Again, it is needed to ensure that the bad guys do not come out to play. But we cannot sustain that number of security deployment across the country. So we must look for ways.
We could afford this because it was a staggered election.
Yes. So an off-cycle election affords us to say, okay, all of our security agencies will be boots on the ground to ensure that elections hold, as it should be. But we must go beyond, I wouldn't say militarizing, but deploying too much security. Let people own, the process. Let them be agents, to ensure that there's a peaceful...
after all, it's a civil exercise.
Absolutely.
Let's see if our next guest agrees with the sentiment that you've shared. We're joined by a member of the Obidient Movement, Ikenna Azomchine. Ikenna, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us on the show. I don't know if to say congratulations to you and in the Anambra. We've seen the reports of the result. Our guest in the studio here thinks, that this was a fair test. Can you please turn down the volume of your TV set? Our guest in studio thinks that it was a fair test of Professor Joash Amokpiton's tenure so far, a great start. But the Labour Party did not fare very well. Do you agree, however, that it was a democratic exercise for Anambra?
Expected a free and fair election, and that's what we got. And those that prepared for the election got their results. So we as Obedience, we had earlier on said that the Labour Party candidate was not, it's not going to give us obediently what we need. And we made a decision to support the Soludo administration because of the competence and the credibility that we are told to emulate. So we give kudos to the governor for his victory.
Thank you, Mr. Azomchine. I'd like to bring in the Director General of Anambra State APC Governorship Campaign Council, Dozie Ikedife Jr. Mr. Ikedife Jr., your candidate came a distant second in the elections. What's your general assessment of the governorship polls that took place on Saturday in Anambra State?
Well, thank you so much for having me this morning. My assessment of the election is that it was peaceful in many parts of the state, though we recorded some casualties. I believe that the INEC did a great job, and voting materials were there on time, and our party agents and the voting public came out to vote. However, we also noticed and recorded a lot of rascality by the ruling party of Anambra State, led by Governor Chukwuma Soludo, where they used a lot of intimidation on the supporters of APC and the agents of our party. So it was quite unfortunate, but we also recorded a lot of violence on the members of our party and our party agents during the elections. So right now we've collected most of our reports. We're going to meet later on this afternoon and analyze things, look at the reports and analyze things, and then report to the party to know on what would be the right step for us to take. So we have to report to the party and then we take a decision. So we have to remember that it's not over until we finish exercising our franchise, which part of the option is whether we go to court or not, whether we go to court to challenge the outcome.
I just want to
to go to court to challenge some of the bad behavior of the APGA government. So we're still considering all those options this morning.
Okay, I just want to clarify, Mr. Ikedife Jr., that your grouse with the election is not about the result, but about some of the actions, especially because your overall party leader, in this case being President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has congratulated the governor of Anambra State. So is your issue about are you challenging the winning of Governor Chukwuma Soludo, or you're just kicking against some of the anomalies that took place during the election?
Well, we have a lot of things to contend with. We have to look at the numbers that were posted by, at the end of the results, at the end of the election, and how the numbers came about. Yes, I understand and I agree that the president has congratulated the governor for winning the election. But also the president relies on us that's here in Anambra State to give him a clear report. The president congratulated Soludo on the declaration by the INEC. It is the INEC that declares the winner. And as the president of the country, he has to congratulate who the INEC has declared winner. But if we have enough grounds to challenge the outcome, I am sure and very optimistic that the president will also support us. And if we decide to go to court and get judgment in our favor, the president will also congratulate our candidate. So it's, the process is not over. Announcing results is part of the process, but I believe that governorship elections end at the Supreme Court. So we are going to look at our options, study the reports, and then take a decision. And before we do anything, we will take our report to the president as the leader of our party. So that's where we are right now.
All right. I just also bring in Mr. Ikenna Azomchine. I hear you when you say that, I heard when you said that you were sort of certain that Mr. Nicholas Ukachukwu Mr. George Moghalu wasn't going to bring you the numbers that you wanted. Was it the general agreement of all the obedience? Because there are people who we did have a conversation on this show, and we saw that the obedience threw their support behind Mr. George Moghalu. So what really happened that has affected the strength and the influence of the Labour Party in Anambra State?
What happened, as Obidient General, I must tell you the facts. The obedience in Anambra are more in number in APGA. And there's no doubt about that argument. Our principal, His Excellency P2B, should have allowed the process to go organically like the Obidient Movement goes. Obedience are in all political parties. And we know, we the field obedience, we know that our cousins and nieces and relatives are all of APGA, but they voted for P2B. So I advised P2B earlier on in the year to stay away from Anambra election, endorsing a candidate that would be weak. And as soon as I saw that this candidate was weak, I went to the platforms. We have Obidient. We operate with support groups. The support groups is the pillar of the Obidient Movement. P2B might be the symbol of the Obidient Movement, but the engine room of the Obidient Movement is we who are the generals. We saw that Moghalu would put shame to us, and we deviated, and we made it clear. What has happened in Anambra is the competence and the credibility that P2B had taught us is what we saw in the governor, and that was why we endorsed him. And we are not apologizing to anyone. Imagine that we had endorsed Moghalu, and he's giving us one vote in our polling unit, then the Obidient Movement will be ironically dead. So I think anyone going to court, I would advise the ruling party APC, it will be effort in futility, because the governor has done well. The Anambrarians, some of them might not like the way he conducts himself, but in general, he's generally accepted.
Okay.
I'd like to go back to the APC, the campaign organization. There were lots of, given the assessment of the Anambra State elections, a lot of civil society organization and observers did mention incidents of vote buying as of deep concern. Could you speak to this point, if you observed any incidents of vote buying, and if the ruling party in Anambra State is guilty of this, or are there any reported incidents of the ruling party perhaps winning as a result of voter inducement?
Place. I'm from Nnewi North Local Government, so I was in Nnewi North Local Government on election day, and we recorded hundreds of incidents of vote buying in my constituency. And that was quite unfortunate, and it just showed the desperation of the Anambra-led, APGA-led government in Anambra State. They came to the polling units with millions of naira, inducing, intimidating the process. What we prayed for and what we campaigned for was free, fair, credible election. And I'm not blaming the electoral umpire for the incidents of vote buying, because the electoral umpires were there at the polling booths, manning the polling booths. But around was a lot of inducement, and there's a lot of hunger in the land. And the governor knew it. He said it on his campaign trail that he was going to induce voters. He was going to induce voters with money, and he lived through to that. I was speaking with one of the leaders of his campaign last night, and it is estimated that he deployed maybe about 2.5 million naira per polling unit. So just do the arithmetic, 2,500 million naira per polling unit and 5,720 polling units across the state. That is humongous amount of money. He went broke, he opened the vault, and because he knew that the only way he was going to come back was through voter inducement. But the fact is that the 99,000 votes that APC got, we did not induce one person. It was not part of our template. No. We needed a free, credible process, and we have proven that APC is strong in Anambra State, that APC is on the ground, and that our agents were crying. The reports I'm getting from our agents, they were sad, crying, because they've never seen something like this before. Mr. Ikedife, it's not that it's not been seen. In the last Senate election, the governor did the same thing. That's just the number one thing on his playbook. So
Mr. Ikedife Jr.
Go to the electorate and buy their conscience. And that's what we witnessed in Anambra State.
So, Mr. Ikedife Jr., I mean, looking ahead, 2027 is around the corner, and looking at this weaponized poverty, because you said, there's a lot of, you admitted to the fact that there's a lot of hunger in the land. What can be done to reduce incidents of vote buying? Is it that enforcement is lax, or is something we'll just have to live with? Because it's no longer a democracy. It feels like an auction.
Opinion, the number one thing that needs to be done is that the players in the field, that is the candidates, must show responsibility. We cannot continue to show rascality and bad behavior and then still want to be given the mandate of the people to govern the people. You have to come up and just live above board. Election is not do or die. You have to respect the people. We in APC, we have clear respect for the people, and we say, let's go to the polls and let the people decide. Let the people come out and cast their ballot without any inducement. In my community, some critical stakeholders came to the polling unit and drove away APC agents, intimidated our agents and drove them away because they knew that they were losing the election. I've never seen anything like that before. We have to show responsibility. We have to show leadership. We have to commit ourselves and help to lead by example. We have to respect the people that we govern. The state receives a lot of allocation from the federal government. That the huge allocation they get from the federal government should be used to empower the people and to build infrastructure, give scholarships, just take care of the people, protect lives and property. But what we saw is that the government of Anambra State stockpiled huge amount of money and then opened the vault on election day. It just shows clear sign of desperation, and I am ashamed at the behavior of my state government, governor. I've never seen anything like that before. Right. A professor stooping so low to come to induce voters in every community. And even in IMLM, where we have strong followership, a young girl who she won an award. APGA thugs went and burnt her house down. That is not acceptable. So like I said, we are still collecting our report, and in due time, we will go and make our presentation to the president, make our presentation to the party, and we believe that when we make the presentation that our party will support us, and most likely the president will sit with us.
Okay, let's
So it was a sad day. It was a sad day indeed in Anambra State.
All right, let's come back to the studio. Such strong allegations have been made against the governor of Anambra State and, the way in which the elections were carried out. Let's have Abdul Latif speak to some of the things that you both have spoken about. Abdul Latif.
Well,
What Chief Dozie had said, it is not impossible that some people could have been intimidated. But if you do not have footages, if you do not have video evidence of some of these things, it will be difficult to prove, and then nobody would listen to you, regardless of the fact that Charles Soludo has won the election. It is good to see what played out, around polling units, so that we can make out frameworks to ensure that we stop them. I did see from the video some of the allegations about vote buying. The identity of the person who is sharing the money is easy to tell.
Exactly.
Therefore, unless INEC prosecutes that person, we will assume that it is something you can do and get away with.
Normal.
So, so we should get to the point where people who buy votes, people who receive inducement from those selling, those trying to buy the votes, be penalized. That way, people will know that immediately when you are coming with money or inducement. In fact, somebody had said that
you can see the brazenness, and they even went there with a camera.
With the camera. So someone even said some were being done using POS. How do you tell easily that someone had bought votes with POS? Again, it's up to the security agencies to rely on the allegations and check and be sure that justice is done.
Okay, just before you continue with your thought process, and whenever we talk about inducement during elections, we always focus on the inducer, the person who's giving the giving, forgetting that our Electoral Act specifies it as a crime for both the person giving as well as the person receiving. But it doesn't seem that there is enough information about that out there, and people just feel like, I'm just collecting, I'll collect and I'll do what I have to do. Please go ahead. So
basically, if there is penalty for such actions, people will be mindful, they'll be wary, when you come to voting processes. Also, I did hear the Obidient Movement person talk about they putting their weight behind Governor Charles Soludo. I didn't hear any of that. There was no press release to that effect. It's possible that the communication was to their members, which I will not be privy to, but I'm thinking Labour Party has done woeful, considering what it was, in the last election, at the engagement. When we always talk about you having grassroots, arrangement, you having the structure to prop people, election is not about one person. It's about the entire structure. It's about taking charge, taking control from those that you feel are not doing enough. So it starts from the words.
Maybe the crisis at the national level in Labour Party
it has impacted. It impacted the PDP, who is the chairman of PDP, who is the flag bearer of PDP. It impacted Labour Party, who is the spokesperson. So unless you have your house together, you will go to elections in the same way. I hope the opposition does not go to the 2027 election, with discordant tones like this.
Okay, we are fast coming to the end of the conversation, but just a final question to Mr. Dozie Ikedife Jr. and Mr. Ikenna Azomchine. I'll start with Mr. Ikenna Azomchine. What's next for the Labour Party?
I'm not a member of Labour Party. I'm the Obidient General.
Okay, what's next for the Obidient Movement?
Like I've said, parties should field candidates that are solid, that are sellable. The ruling party fielded a candidate who is not popular. The same with Labour Party. I mean, Professor Chukwuma Soludo has done well the last 4 years, and he's way far better than all the other contestants. We Obedience, we look at the quality of individual. There's no sentiment, like the young man who was talking about not being aware of Obidient Movement supporting Soludo. We attended Soludo's rallies and we endorsed him officially, except that the Tanko and Co were having discrepancies. But Tanko is from the north. We are Obedience from Anambra. We know who our choice, we know our preferred choice. And we took our decisions, and I congratulate the governor. He has done well. Vote buying was common. Even APC, there was vote buying on the side of the APC, which was visible. So they should just next time prepare a better candidate who can, come with the force that is required to be able to make an impact.
Okay, just to clarify, you say you're not a member of the Labour Party. You're a member of the Obidient Movement. Is the Obidient Movement associated with any political party?
Obidient Movement, we are all in different political parties, and there are more obedience in APGA, and that was what called for our support for Chukwuma Soludo. Recall in 2023, more APGA obedience voted for P2B, and it's time to pay them back. So we obedience, we know the organogram of the Obidient Movement more than anybody who is seated there in the studio. The Obidient General knows the obedience who are in APGA. We know the obedience in APC. We know the obedience in Labour. So the obedience in Labour cannot claim that they are in the majority in Anambra. It's as good as when it's Enugu State. There are more obedience in PDP in Enugu State. So our decision in Enugu State might not be the same as in Anambra. So obediently, we congratulate Professor Chukwuma Soludo for his victory.
All right. And the final words from Mr. Dozie Ikedife Jr. The next steps, I know you say the APC is going to gather its evidence about a lot of the anomalies that went on during the elections, and you present it to get the support from the president. But, you know, what would your thoughts be regarding the next steps for Anambra State as a whole?
The things that we have to do, like I said, one, we review things and then take a decision. Two, we have a grand plan where we've been building the base of the party, and the base of the party is very strong. And you have to understand that most of the people that man their polling units on volunteer basis, based on how we have been building the party from the ground up. So we have a strong party, and I'm very appreciative of the support that we've received from the people in the different communities. We are very appreciative of that. So we'll continue to build our party, and we'll continue to make sure that the conversation is on the table. We have to improve the process in our state. Anambra State is a big state, and we can't be known for voter rascality. We have to address some of these issues. We cannot go to the polls intimidating people, and thank God that the Agudé Chamber people did not come out on this election. So, and it was because of the conversations we held after the senatorial by-election. So we are going to continue to hold those conversations to make sure that our state continues to grow, because at the end of the day, no matter who is on the saddle, the person that's on the saddle is going to be the governor of Anambra State. And Anambra State must continue to attract investors and attract other people to come to our state. We have a beautiful state, but what we're saying is that the person on the saddle must show responsibility. And we're not going to give anybody, we should not give anybody the mandate of the people, and the person that has been given the mandate doesn't have respect for the people. I just feel, my opinion, that this current government does not have respect for Anambra voters. And it's very sad. So we'll continue the conversation.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this morning on Breakfast Central. We wish the Anambra all the best, and we look forward to ensuring that we speak about enabling democratic election processes in our country. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.